All right, you guys. Welcome to this impromptu episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. I wasn't planning on doing this episode quite yet, but despite all my intentions otherwise, have somehow ended up watching House of Stassi on Hulu. And I'm only halfway through the third episode. I probably shouldn't even be speaking about it yet, but there's so much that's coming up for me watching the show, and I feel my nervous system flooding a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I just got to hop on the mic and get some initial thoughts out there about what I feel like I'm seeing, what I feel like the headlines are being announced by House of Stassi. Because as you know, what I'm always interested in is looking at everything that happens in life, including pop culture, media content, and more specifically reality TV, as a reflection of where we are as a culture and what's going on in the collective. So when there is a show like House of Stassi, especially as buzzy as it is, because I feel like a lot of people are talking about it, and she herself is a very divisive, polarizing figure, which is part of what I want to get into today. Yeah, I just get curious about what's going on here on a deeper level and what this might be inviting us into on a deeper level. So on that note, I'm just going to riff a little bit. This is going to be very free form, very rough. I've not developed my thoughts at all, but like I said, I just kind of want to start getting some of my thoughts and impulses out. And my hope is to actually record a few more episodes about this show as it continues to unfold and as I continue to watch it, because I think there are actually a lot of different interesting themes. And then I'm kind of interested in how Stassi herself fits into this as kind of like the center of the constellation of all these themes. But yeah, I'm 2.5 episodes in, and I'm finding myself triggered by Stassi, as I always have been to some degree. I'm not someone who's ever loved Stassi. Um, I can acknowledge that she's made compelling TV at times. I can acknowledge that she can be charming at times. She has made me laugh. She can be clever. Like, I get that there can be something dynamic about her on TV, but I've never fully warmed to her. And like I said, she's actually kind of always triggered me. And I've never gotten that curious about why, because it was never that deep. It was never like, oh, I hate Stassi. I just never, she was just never for me. I mean, that's the simplest way I could put it, which is part of why I was never going to watch this show. I had zero interest in the life of Stassi Schroeder. And that's part of what I want to get into, because I feel like watching House of Stassi is making me more aware of why I've never been fully interested in the life and times of Stassi Schroeder, and also what that might be saying about what we're watching in front of us in terms of what this might be reflecting in the culture. But yeah, like I said, I was never sort of that curious about why I never warmed to her. I just knew that I never really warmed to her. But I'm watching this show. For whatever reason, I was drawn to it. Like I said, it's buzzy. Something in me was like, you know what, check it out. And I'm in the middle of the third episode, and I want to say first and foremost, like, I was so drawn to that scene where she visits Christina Kelly at home. And she starts downloading Christina Kelly on all the different things that are going on, like going on with her and Bo and going on with her and Katie. And I was just watching Stassi basically download the fact that she's discovering that Bo's really unhappy in their marriage. He feels unfulfilled as a man. He's deeply sad about it. And Christina Kelly is there for her, I guess, as a friend, and trying to confirm that Stassi is actually a loving partner. And she puts the question to Stassi of like, well, hey, like, did you wake up and give him a kiss this morning and just like express your love that way, in that kind of small way? And Stassi pauses and says, no. And then, it's this moment basically where both Stassi and Christina Kelly, I think, are registering the degree to which Stassi really doesn't take time, effort, or energy to express her love and appreciation for Bo. especially in this time where he's really struggling. And what struck me about it was just the way that she just started laughing about it. She just started laughing. No, it's like she makes a joke out of it. She plays it off for laughs and for comedy. And I just found myself taking this in, thinking to myself, this isn't actually funny. This isn't a joke. I have my issues with Beau, and I think there's a lot of responsibility Beau needs to take for himself in his own life. But still, this is a man who is struggling, and he's telling you that he's struggling, and you're now playing it off as a fucking joke. So then she proceeds to go on to talk about the Katie stuff. And she's like, yeah, I talked to Katie, and Katie had this mic drop moment where she basically called me out on the fact that the only people who I'm close to in my life are either my family members or my children, which I guess are family members, but my family of origin members, my married family members, or the people who are on my payroll working for me. And again, Stassi was sort of acknowledging the truth of what Katie was saying. She called it a mic drop moment. And then she's like, again, plays it off and talks about how it's great TV and I need her for the TV show. And I'm like, once again, there's this really potentially serious moment where someone is bringing something to you that on one level you're acknowledging has deep, sobering truth to it, and yet you are not taking it in on any level. And then the same thing happened. I just watched the cemetery scene with her and Beau, and they got, they're playing this card game where they're asking each other questions as a couple in order to deepen their intimacy. And even the scene, it's I just want to sort of point out, it's Stassi is aware there's trouble in her marriage and that it's serious, but rather than so far, where I am in the show, so far, rather than actually taking it seriously and feeling like she's taking Beau in on a deeper level, it instead becomes sort of cute, kooky content for the show. And so now we're going to have this date that's going to be content for the show. And now we're going to play this game that's here to deepen our intimacy. It's there's just the sense that she's not taking it really seriously. But one of the questions in the card game for them as a couple is this question that's essentially something like how does Stassi express her love or show her love? And again, she's stumped. She can't answer the question. And once again, she plays it off as a joke, and she's smiling and she's laughing. And I was just sort of taking this in. I was like, none of this is actually funny. And yet you're playing it off as if it's cute and funny. And that just sort of led me down a rabbit trail in my mind where I'm like, yeah, I think a lot of what's always bothered me about Stassi is the fact that I think that I've always been a bit repelled by the way in which she celebrates not taking herself seriously. And I think there's something deeper to it. I think that Stassi actually really actively disowns responsibility for herself. And I want to say for herself as a powerful woman. And I'm going to get to that in a moment because I think she is actually powerful and she actually has impact. And I'm going to touch on the faith of it all in a moment because that feels here for me very much as well. Her quote unquote cancellation, which I'm calling it quote unquote a cancellation because I don't actually think she was canceled. I think she was fired from her job appropriately. I want to say, I think she was fired from her job. I don't think she was canceled. We'll get to that in a moment, but there's an overarching theme here around what I see as Stassi sidestepping her native power as a human being and as a woman. And what I've seen in her is she really kind of leans into, being basic. She made a whole brand out of being basic. She literally wrote a book about being a basic bitch. I forget what it's called, but literally it was the title of her book. And I realized that's always part of what's bothered me about her. It's making a love of ranch into a brand, a love of ranch dressing into a personality trait. Making her love of murder and true crime a personality trait as if this is something that's so kooky and wild and weird, when in fact, tons of people out there, there's a way that she celebrates and has always celebrated being basic, and it's like if I were to put words to it, it's like this voice in her that's kind of like, oh, I'm a basic bitch, there's nothing more to me, hee 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 hee. And it's like, even saying this out loud, I want to be like, well, actually there is more to you, you just refuse to acknowledge it. Because the truth is, Stassi has been really successful, right? And it's like, for those people that like her, right? Like, well, why do they like her? Because there is actually something dynamic about her. Like, she's compelling to watch, you know, and from the beginning of Vanderpump Rules, again, I didn't particularly love it, but the fact of the matter is she did drive story. She was kind of initially the unapologetic villainess who would sit there and say, that's right, I'm the devil and don't you forget it. Like, there was a power to her, almost kind of like, well, you know, she called herself a witch of WeHo, like a witchiness to her. And it's like she's capable of generating success and generating like being a provocateur and generating conversation, but then rather than owning that personal power and standing for something and using her fame and her unexpected fame and her unexpected platform to actually stand for something. Instead, what she does is she leans into, I'm basic, I love ranch dressing. It's like taking pride in not being curious about the world around her, taking pride in being a basic bitch. I even as I say it, I feel like it allows her to get away with something. It allows her to get away with something. And I just feel like that something is some sort of like responsibility, ownership of her personal power, first and foremost, ownership of the platform she has, ownership of like whatever she wants to take a stand for in this world. And in the place where she takes ownership of it, taking responsibility for her power and her impact and the impact that it has on those around her. It's like, I don't actually believe she's just a basic bitch. I think there's more to her than that. But I think she refuses to fucking own it, because then she has to take responsibility for herself, her impact, her actions, her mistakes. And something in her doesn't want to do that. Something in her just wants to glide on by in this life and just be famous for fucking nothing, for liking ranch dressing, for liking true crime shows, and to earn a fuckload of money for doing it. And there's part of me that just really wants to say, like, you don't get to do that stuff. I mean, she is doing it, so obviously what I say doesn't matter, but there's a voice that comes through me that's like, you don't get to do that, Stassi. No way. Like, if you're gonna take up my time and energy and attention, and if you're gonna have a platform, and if you're gonna be well paid to be on TV, own your power and take a fucking stand for something. It reminds me a lot of, like, you know, I remember because I watched Mormon Wives, and she was the host for the reunion of Mormon Wives. And I was so curious to see how this was going to go for her, because I certainly didn't like Nick Viall as the host for Mormon Wives reunion. I was curious to see how it was going to go with a woman, an outspoken woman like Stassi. And I forget the specifics, but I remember she just spent so much time leaning into the posture of like, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't deserve to be here. And I also see her doing this on the show too, where it's like she kind of cosplays this humility and this bumbling basic babe in the woods who doesn't know how she got here. And I can't believe I'm doing this. And da 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 da. And I'm like, I mean, I guess this is the thing. It just doesn't feel like real humility to me. It feels like cosplaying humility. And again, it's like, for me, I think on the most superficial level, my immediate response when I'm watching her pull this shit on the Mormon Wives reunion is like, Stassi, like, why the fuck am I watching you? Like, you're being paid for this. This isn't like some improv class where you're like trying something out for the sake of like getting uncomfortable. You are getting paid a lot of money to do this. This is your fucking job. So I get it. Maybe you're not an experienced hostess. I get it. Maybe you're fucking nervous, but like, that's not my problem. Can you show up and assume the role and assume the position and fake it till you make it? Like, can you make this about something other than you being a basic bitch who stumbled into this high profile hosting gig, and like take it seriously and take yourself seriously in the role? Because you're the one getting paid, not me. And you're now occupying my time, energy, and attention. I'm not here to like witness you cosplaying fake humility and sort of like playing coy about your level of influence and power in the reality TV world. Like, stand for something. And I see her doing it on the show too, where it's like, you know, she's got this whole narrative around having been canceled and now like getting the second chance, which again, I don't really think she was canceled. But like, even seeing her, the way that she's sort of like on the private jet and getting this like opportunity to, I forget what, like co-host something with, I think her name is Alex. Is it Alex Cooper? Yeah, I think that's her name, like from Call Me Daddy. And again, there's just the way that Stassi orients towards this, like, I can't believe this is happening to little old me. I can't believe I'm getting my second shot. And again, I'm just like, I don't want to fucking watch this. I do not want to watch you being bowled over by your opportunities because you feel deep down you don't deserve them, because you're sort of like a hack who's sort of faking your way through this. Like, at a certain point, you have to take ownership of your role. And I guess, again, this is just 5,000 different ways of me saying the same thing, which is like, I don't buy it. I don't buy the fake humility. It feels like you're doing this so you don't have to take responsibility for your personal power as an individual and a human being, but also your power as someone who is in the public eye and has a fucking platform, which does bring me to the quote unquote cancellation. And it brings me to the faith of it all, the faith stowers, because I feel like it is such a metaphor for what I'm talking about here, which is like, you know, Stassi at the beginning of the show talks about her cancellation, which again, I just want to be clear, she was never canceled. She continued to have a successful podcast. Now she has a show. She was fired from her job for doing something deeply problematic. That's just called being held responsible for your actions. It's not being canceled. I mean, I guess maybe we're at a point in our culture where we have to define what cancel culture actually, what does that actually mean? But I don't know. To me, being fired from one particular job, but then getting back on the horse and continuing to work and continuing to have success, and then 5 or so years later, having your own show on Hulu with Disney, I don't think that's being canceled. It was like a bump in the road of your own making, but whatever. We'll go with her languaging. She was canceled. She was fired. And let's be clear, Stassi did something that was deeply problematic, and then she doubled down, you know, and for those of, I mean, I'm assuming everyone listening to this knows what she did, but, you know, she saw surveillance footage and an article of some kind of a Black woman who had been stealing in West Hollywood. She decided it looked like her cast member Faith, and like literally called the cops on Faith to report Faith to the police for these crimes. And then I think doubled down on it and continued to talk about on her podcast, or maybe it was another podcast, like other things, other crimes she thought Faith had been responsible for. I mean, it was really just reckless, dangerous, problematic, negligent, all the things. And it's something that could have had a tremendous, well, it could have had a tremendous impact on Faith in terms of like what happened to her in the outside world. And it did have a tremendous impact on Faith, like emotionally. So this is what Stassi did. And she got fired for it, I think rightfully so. But here she is, you know, she's making it work. And so here she is, she's back in the saddle. And so Stassi's talking about her cancellation, and she kind of talks about it somberly for a moment, where she says, you know, I forget exactly what she says, but basically she says something to the effect of like, I had to self-reflect. I wasn't proud of what I said or did. I had to look within. She doesn't fucking talk about what she actually did. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because later Katie Maloney has a scene with Ariana where she's stamping her bags at her sandwich shop, something about her, and she said, like, according to Katie, because Katie's sitting there saying, you know, people questioned why did I stand by Stassi throughout all of this, why didn't I call her out? And according to Katie, I guess behind the scenes, Stassi was truly humbled by this. It really cut her off at the knees. There was genuine humility, and according to Katie, Stassi, I guess, was taking responsibility for the things that she had said in the past and acknowledged them as microaggressions and was growing and learning behind the scenes. That's according to Katie. My issue with, I mean, that's all wonderful if it's true. My issue with this is that Stassi's not fucking talking about it on the show. That's what I want to hear from you. Not to punish you, but I want to hear you take actual self-responsibility for what you did, which, yes, means naming, this is what I did. This is what I learned from it. This is why I regret it. I'm using this platform now to speak out about it. Hell, you brought Katie back onto the show. You brought Christina Kelly back onto the show. Ariana's on the show. I would love to see you have a sit down with Faith on this show. I mean, we don't know that Faith would want to do it, but why not give Faith a chance to speak up and speak out? Why not pay Faith to be on this reality show? Like, that to me would be kind of an interesting movement in the right direction of, like, if you've truly learned something, why not use this in part to actually speak about what happened? And instead it just gets danced around, even by Katie. It's like this, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what metaphor. It's like this monolith in the room, this opaque piece of marble where it's like, we're going to talk about it as the cancellation, capital C, but we're not going to talk about what actually led to the cancellation. We're not going to talk about what you did, what you said, what you learned, why you're remorseful. We're not letting the air out of the tire. And instead, it's now becoming a prop in your comeback narrative. So in a way, this is all just becoming a vehicle as Stassi's story, as the white woman who's now having a comeback. And it's like, that's what it feels like. It's being used for Stassi's narrative. And there's no part of this that feels like the narrative belongs to the person and to the people who were injured by Stassi's actions. And again, I'm not looking for Stassi to like fucking throw herself on a fire and like slit her wrists over this. I'm not asking for her to like forever be canceled and to never be able to like earn a living for her family. But what I am asking for is for her to speak about it. And so I guess I'm saying this because, again, for me, this just sort of feels, that's what I mean by a metaphor of like, there's something really potentially powerful here that Stassi could be doing and speaking out about this in a real way and showing, like in this case, real humility in terms of the situation. And instead it feels like she's talking around it and circling it, not really taking ownership of it in a true embodied way, but then also using it as like a narrative device in this show where she's all around disowning her power. Like, that's just what I get from this. And so this is what I'm going to conclude on. Like, the headline I get from this show, what I see, one of the things I see Stassi representing in terms of the show is like disowning impact. Yeah, disowning impact, disowning personal power, and the destruction that happens when we do that. Again, you know, I mean this on the transpersonal level in terms of like Faith and what happened there, but also on the personal level in terms of what's happening in her personal life, the people around her, Beau, her marriage. You know, it's like Stassi wants to cosplay. Little old me, basic bitch, ranch dressing. I don't know what I'm doing. But meanwhile, she's the fucking star of this show. And she has a fucking platform. And she's the center of her universe. And she refuses to look at her personal responsibility as a powerful person. And in this case, as a powerful woman. And in the case of what happened with Faith, her power and responsibility as a white woman in society. There's just something there for me that, and it's, again, I've never been able to name this before, like watching House of Stassi. There's something that's triggering for me about a really powerful person. It's actually like, I feel like this is why I always had issues with Heather Gay on Salt Lake City. It's this cosplaying of little old me, who me? Little weak old me? And the mileage someone gets out of that and the destruction that they can reap when they disown their actual deeper power. And I think this whole show is playing Stassi's inner conflicts for comedy, for kooky reality TV comedy, for laughs. Again, I'm only in episode 3, so we'll see where this goes. And I just want to say I'm not buying it. And I think there's an invitation for us here, if we sort of take a step back and look at this on a universal level. It's like, where do we disown our power in our own lives? Where do we play off our power? Where do we not want to take in full responsibility for our impact on the world around us? Where do we play ourselves off like a joke when it's really not fucking funny? What are the issues in our lives where we see something going wrong and perhaps people are struggling, perhaps we're struggling, and we play it off, we minimize it? oh, Bo, I don't ever kiss Bo hello in the morning. He's unfulfilled as a man. This will be great for reality TV. Like, where do we do that in our own lives? Where do we play shit off as a joke when it's not a fucking joke and it's actually serious? And what does that allow us to get away with? What does that allow us to get away with? Because I think Stassi gets away with a lot. And again, I'm actually saying, like, as I say this, I'm saying this in support of her actually being a powerful woman who owns her power, owns her impact, steps into the part of her life that's like, yeah, you know, I don't know exactly how this happened, but I'm fucking famous. And I get well paid to be on people's TV screens. So let me fucking stand for something. Anything other than I'm just a basic bitch who likes ranch dressing. Tee hee hee. Isn't this funny? I don't know how I got here. Oh my God, you guys, what am I doing here? Did I do a good job? I've said it. I think she sort of cosplays as a little girl and then sort of stands on the side and is like, who, me? What did I do? So look, you guys, like I said, there's a lot more I could say. There's other themes and issues that I think are alive in the show, particularly with how it's dealing with the fourth wall and just the very nature of reality TV itself. So there's more I want to get into. But I just had to hop on here and just sort of speak some of this out loud. Because like I said, this show is hitting. It's hitting something in the viewing audience and it's hitting something in the collective. And it feels worth paying attention to for that reason. And like, that is actually the last thing I'll say. Just, this is what I'll say, you guys. This is what I mean by like, pattern isn't everything. Just the fact that this show is so buzzy, you know, the fact that it is hitting something in people, like that is a testament to Stassi's power. You know, I talk about how we all have like a field of energy. Stassi's field is this buzzy show that's hitting something in the collective, just like she tapped into something for a lot of people, and particularly a lot of women on Vanderpump Rules. Like, that's what I'm saying. Stassi is more than just some basic bitch who likes ranch dressing. She holds powerful energy, but she refuses to step into it in a real way and take responsibility for it in a real way. And that is what has always gotten under my skin about her. I just want to like, stop it. Like, stop the act. It's almost like a voice that's coming through me right now. It's like, take responsibility for yourself. You have a fucking impact. And pretending to be a basic bitch who giggles and loves ranch dressing, like, it gives you this excuse to deny your own impact. And I'm not standing for it anymore. And I have a feeling maybe this show actually is also going to possibly invite Stassi into having to reckon with that on a deeper level. And, you know, this is the last thing I'll say. It's so funny because this is reminding me, you know, when she did get fired several years ago, because I'm always sort of curious, like, you know, I view life as, I think the spiritual journey isn't that only good things are ever going to happen to us. Like, that's not the point of being human. Like, if we were supposed to be happy all the time, we would have stayed up in the divine kingdom where we truly are happy and everything's wonderful and blissful. We come down to this earth to be challenged and tested and to learn and grow through our challenges and tests. So I'm always just looking at, from the spiritual journey, what's the deeper invitation? Not like, oh, why did this happen to me? I don't deserve this. But why is this? Like, what's the invitation here for me as a human who's meant to evolve and grow over the course of this lifetime, many lifetimes? And so I'm always asking that for other people too. And when Stassi got fired, I remember kind of like intuitively feeling around of like, what is this about for Stassi? And it was actually this very thing. I remember kind of feeling like, because she was pregnant at the time, she got fired. And I remember thinking, oh, this is the moment where she could really take responsibility for her life and her choices and her actions and step into womanhood, to like not feel like she needed to depend on the teat of Lisa Vanderpump and Vanderpump Rules and Bravo, and to not minimize her own blind spots and the choices that she makes, but to take responsibility for her actions, put her big girl panties on, take responsibility for the future of her family, and like step into a sense of personal power. And it feels like she's halfway done that, but she's not all the way doing it. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people say, like, it's interesting because, again, if you look at everything as a reflection of Stassi's field, a lot of people are saying, I tuned in because I wanted her to change. I want her to be different. And then a lot of people are saying, and I'm so disappointed that she's not. So there's this real sort of question here about like, will Stassi step into her deeper power? Or will she continue to play these games where she kind of like tiptoes around it and cosplays it for the sake of like content? TBD. All right, you guys, that's it for now. Thanks for bearing with me, and we'll see how this wants to continue to unfold. See you on the flip side. Bye.